Hello everyone, welcome to the Wuxia Audiobook. Today, we will continue to the next part of the series Renegade Immortal.
Chapter 31, Snow Water. Wang Lin's expression remained normal. He asked, "How much do you need?" Wang Hao hesitated and said, "At least 200. That much? What do you need it for?" Wang Lin was stunned. He did have 200 talismans. He had received almost 500 from bribes. Wang Hao sighed and said, with a bitter face, "Brother Taizhu, in 2 months it will be the inner disciple competition. While I can participate, I don't have any chance of winning. But I refuse to give up. That bastard Wang Chuo has already reached the first layer of qi condensation and I heard that he is attempting to reach the second layer. How does he cultivate so quickly?" Wang Lin hadn't seen Wang Chuo in a while and was quite surprised. It seemed that talent really mattered. Wang Hao revealed an angry expression and said, "It's only because he is a good master. His master didn't care about the price and begged my master for a batch of foundation establishment pills. Those are very precious pills within the sect. After eating the pill, cultivation speed increases drastically." Wang Lin nodded and asked, "What does this have to do with you borrowing talismans?" Wang Hao muttered, "Of course there is a connection. You don't interact with others much, but a month before the competition, all the inner disciples will hold a small exchange. There, everyone takes out their treasures to exchange for the final preparation. I heard from some seniors that attended it before. They said that during the exchange, anything can be used, like flying swords, magical treasures, pills, etc." After Wang Lin heard this, his heart started pounding. He didn't have much interest in flying swords or magical treasures, but the chance for the qi condensation stages were important to him. Thinking that he might be able to obtain them at the exchange, he pondered for a while and said, "The inner disciples trust each other that much, to just do these exchanges?" Wang Hao laughed and said, "Brother Taizhu, you have asked an important question. There is one rule during this exchange, and that's also the requirement to enter the exchange. That is, have a disguise pill. After taking the disguise pill, unless someone is at the foundation stage, no one can recognize you." A thought flashed through Wang Lin's head. "You are borrowing all these talismans for that pill?" Wang Hao was stunned. He nodded and said, "Brother Taizhu is really smart. That is true. This pill is controlled by my master, and around this time of year, he starts to privately sell them. The price is 200 talismans." Wang Lin considered a bit and said, "This exchange seems quite interesting. I want to go check it out as well." Wang Hao quickly said, "Sure, as long as you have a disguise pill, you can attend. My goal this time is a foundation establishment pill. I heard that this time, there is a disciple selling them." Wang Lin waved his right hand and took out 400 talismans from his bag of holding. He made them into 4 bundles of 100 talismans each. Wang Hao's eyes lit up, then stored them in his bag of holding. "Brother Taizhu, there is still about half a month of time. I'll come and find you then. We can go together." Wang Lin nodded. They talked for a while and Wang Hao left. After Wang Hao left, he contemplated it for a while. Wang Lin attached great importance to this exchange, as this was a chance for him to get the chance for the later qi condensation stages. But he didn't have anything valuable, and all the talismans were used on buying the disguise pill. After pondering for a long time, he decided to bring some spiritual energy-filled spring water. That should be able to attract some people. With the help of the pill, no one would know his identity. After making up his mind, Wang Lin no longer thought about this matter. Right now, he couldn't enter the dream space, so he started to practice the attraction force technique on the large rocks in the Chao house. He had already practiced the attraction force over 10,000 times in the dream space. He had become more and more skilled at it. If it was used on a gourd, then the success rate was 10 out of 10. Now, in everyday life, as long as he moved his hand, he could grab small objects. If the size was too big, the success rate would lower, but with his spiritual energy still growing, and after he entered the second layer, the attraction force technique was starting to show its true power. After practicing on the large rocks for a few hours, it was dark and snowing outside, but Wang Lin didn't immediately enter the dream space. He stood at the doorway and stared at the snowflakes as he started to ponder. Throughout the month, While cultivating at the second layer, Wang Lin noticed a problem. The effects of the spiritual energy-filled spring water had decreased. Although the decrease was very small and could be made up, it brought him endless worry. He was afraid that, as his chi condensation stage got higher and higher, one day, the spiritual energy-filled spring water would lose its effect. While soaking the mysterious bead in liquid dew was the best, followed by spring water, dew collection was far too slow. There was not enough to use, and there was none in the winter. The spring water was the easiest and the most practical to get, and he had an endless supply. However, if one day, the spring water is no longer effective, Wang Lin needed to have something to replace it. He slightly moved his hand and activated the attraction force technique. Chunks of snow formed into a dragon and charged into a large pot in the room. After a short while, Wang Lin had filled half the pot. He stopped the attraction force technique and came next to the pot. He formed a seal with his right hand. After more than 10 tries, he finally formed a baby-sized fireball. The fireball emitted a lot of heat and quickly melted the snow. After all of the snow had melted, he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Continuously using 2 techniques had made him very tired. There wasn't much snow water in the pot. He threw the mysterious bead into pot and took it out 10 minutes later. He now had a very good understanding of the mysterious bead. Soaking it in spring water for 10 minutes was the limit. He had tested soaking it for longer, but found that as long as it was in for at least 10 minutes, the effect remained the same. He took a drink of the water, then closed his eyes and carefully examined the change in the spiritual energy in his body. A moment later, he opened his eyes and muttered, "The effect is a lot better than spring water, but still below dew. It can be used." He immediately took out countless gourds. They were all the gourd that he had gathered in the mountains. After working for the entire night, all the snow in his yard was gone. That snow filled up a small portion of the gourds with spiritual energy water. Chapter 32, Exchange. In the next few days, besides training in the dream space, Wang Lin had been busy collecting snow to melt for water. If not for the fear of the spiritual energy escaping, he would have used vats, so he used gourds instead. It was good that he had enough gourds. After only a few days, he had accumulated a few hundred gourds filled with snow water. He calculated that the snow water that he had collected in those gourds was enough for him to use in the dream space for a long time. After storing the snow water, Wang Lin went back to cultivating. Although the spring water's effect had dropped, it was still useful. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Over those 10 days, Wang Lin had drunk more spring water than he ever had before. Good thing the spring water dissolved into spiritual energy in his body, otherwise, there was no way his stomach could handle that much water. The amount of spiritual energy needed for the second layer was much greater than the first layer. In fact, Wang Lin had already cultivated for more than 9 months in his dream space. If it was the first layer, after cultivating for 9 months with this much spiritual energy, he would have achieved some good results, but now, even though he felt that his body contained much more spiritual energy, he still wasn't able to reach the results he desired. The day that Wang Lin agreed to meet with Wang Hao had come, so Wang Lin didn't enter the dream space. Around midnight, it started to snow, and Wang Hao entered Wang Lin's divine sense. Shortly after, Wang Hao opened the door, but didn't come in. He quickly said, "Master took a long time to refine pills and delayed me. Come quickly, the exchange is about to start." Wang Hao hurried toward the exchange and Wang Lin hastily followed. The two walked in the snow and wandered out of the sect's courtyards and into the mountains. The current road was very slippery, so Wang Hao walked very slowly. His body was shaking. He whispered, "What's with this damn weather? If I fell down the mountain here and died, even if I was a ghost, I would want some justice." Wang Lin's body was now very light. He didn't share Wang Hao's discomfort at all. In fact, he felt that the weather was pretty good. He thought that, after the exchange was over, he could collect a lot more snow water. After walking for a while, Wang Hao stopped. He secretly handed Wang Lin a green pill and whispered, "We are almost there. I came here a few days ago. It's only a few turns away. Let us take the pill now, so no one will know our identities." Wang Hao took out a similar pill, swallowed it. A thick black fog appeared and covered Wang Hao's body. A gruff voice came out from the fog and said, "How is it? Can you tell who I am?" Wang Lin scanned Wang Hao with his divine sense and found that he felt as if there was a barrier of mud blocking him. That made him feel like the pill was safe to take. He laughed and said, "This pill is really amazing." Then he took the pill and a similar thing happened to him as well. The two quickly walked forward. After making a few turns, they arrived at an open area. The open space was very large. Dozens of people stood there, covered in black fog like them, in silence. After Wang Lin and Wang Hao arrived, they found an empty space and stood there without moving. Not long after, seeing that no one else was coming, one person stepped forward, coughed once, then hoarsely said, "Time is up. This time, I will host the exchange again. Just as before, I'll go first." After he finished talking, he pulled out a little silver sword and said, "This flying sword doesn't belong to the sect. It's one that I obtained myself and it's very powerful. I want only 500 talismans." Everyone started to talk about the sword amongst themselves for a while, then someone walked forward and, without a word, handed over 500 talismans and finished the trade. Another began to say, "I have this piece of magical jade that could release a skill similar to Earth Split 3 times. I only want 10 chi gathering pills." He took out a piece of jade, waved it and put it away. Someone not far from Wang Lin immediately said, "I'll exchange with you." As he was coming out, another person quickly said, "I'll trade 12 pills for that piece of jade." The first person hesitated and stared hard at the second person without a word. He felt that 10 pills was the limit. Soon after, people came up one by one, showing off their stuff, and the scene became lively, especially when people fought over a certain item. Whoever had the highest bid won. I have a technique here that, as long as you're above the second layer of chi condensation, you can use it to hide your cultivation for a short period of time, unless the person is already at the foundation establishment stage. I know that this thing is pretty useless. I only want 5 chi gathering pills for it. The person who said it was very hesitant. Everyone laughed. This technique really was useless. All of the disciples wanted to show off their cultivation, because the higher the cultivation, the better their treatment. Who was that bored, to want to hide their cultivation? If it lasted longer, then it would at least have some use, but it only lasted for a short period and cost so much, 5 chi gathering pills. Seeing that no one wanted it, the person sighed. Just as he was about to put it away, Wang Lin called out, "I'll trade 5 chi gathering pills for it." The person in the middle was stunned. They quickly became excited and came up to exchange. Holding the thing containing the technique, Wang Lin was stunned. He had never seen this type of thing before. He quickly scanned it with his divine sense and the method for the technique quickly appeared in his mind. This thing might be useless for others, but it was very useful to him, even though it could only hide cultivation for a short period of time. A voice suddenly rang out. Despite it being hoarse, it was still filled with pride. "1 foundation establishment pill. State your offer." Wang Hao immediately became excited and quickly said, 20 chi gathering pills. 1,000 talismans plus a flying sword. 2,000 talismans. 30 chi gathering pills plus 500 talismans. A piece of skill jade, a flying sword, 10 chi gathering pills and 500 talismans. The crowd loudly shouted their offers. They clearly viewed the foundation establishment pill as an item of great importance. Wang Lin had heard about this foundation establishment pill from Wang Hao. After taking the pill, its effect would stay in the body for 2 months. In those 2 months, the rate in which one absorbed spiritual energy would be increased by several times. It was something every disciple under the 7th layer of chi condensation desired. That pill was very precious, even in the sect. Every disciple normally only had 2 chances of obtaining it. When a disciple was promoted to black cloth rank, they could receive 1, and when they get promoted to purple cloth they would receive 2. Chapter 33, Main Text. Wang Lin had no interest in this foundation establishment pill at all. Seeing the price already so high, he sighed for Wang Hao. It seemed that Wang Hao wouldn't be able to get this foundation establishment pill. While thinking this, he heard Wang Hao shout, 230 chi gathering pills. This is my limit. anymore, and I'm not trading." The scene quickly became silent. 230 chi gathering pills was already a very high price. Not many could beat it. But the foundation establishment pill was simply too rare, and few were willing to give theirs up. The person selling the foundation establishment pill smiled. He arrogantly said, "With just 230 chi gathering pills, you want to trade for my foundation establishment pill? If the price is under 2,000 chi gathering pills, I'm not trading." Wang Lin quickly listened to his voice. After pondering for a while, he secretly guessed that this person was Wang Qiawo, but he was not sure, because he was completely hidden by the black fog. Wang Hao shrugged and didn't say a word. Everyone present was stunned by that person's arrogance. The person in charge coughed and said, "Okay everyone, since that person doesn't want to trade his foundation establishment pill, let us move on and continue the exchange." Before long, another person came out and presented their goods. Soon, it was Wang Lin's turn. He stepped forward, took out a small bottle, and said, "A mysterious liquid that could match 1 drop to 1 chi gathering pill. There are about 100 drops in here. I only want the chance for the 4th layer or later." After he finished talking, he opened the bottle. Everyone could sense the spiritual energy within it. Many people became mesmerized. Although chi gathering pills were filled with spiritual energy, it was still a finished product. This liquid had many more uses, like refining more pills. Even when refining treasures, like a flying sword, it would help increase its spiritual power. Someone immediately said, "I'll trade the chant for the 4th layer with you." Wang Lin raised his brow and said, "Only the 4th layer." Another person shouted, "How about the chance for the 4th, 5th, and 6th layers to trade for that mysterious liquid?" Wang Lin pondered a little. He shook his head and said, "I want the chance for the 4th through 15th layer." "Brother, aren't you making this too difficult for us? Even second elder apprentice brother Kanjie, who won last year's competition, is only at the 6th layer, and they only have the chant for 7th, 8th, and 9th layer. From the 10th to 15th layer, only a few elder apprentice brothers have them." Wang Lin was stunned. He hesitated for a while. Suddenly, a voice from not far away said, "If you have 200 drops of that liquid, I can give you the chant for layers 4 through 9. Everyone looked toward the voice and saw a man wearing purple walking toward the disguised Wang Lin. He was only about 20 years old, but had a cold expression. When he arrived, he looked at the surroundings and everyone was shocked. They respectfully said, "Second elder apprentice brother Kanjie." The purple-clothed man didn't pay any attention to them, but said to Wang Lin, "Do you have 200 drops?" Wang Lin's face hardened and his pupils shrank. He was getting an extremely dangerous feeling from this person, far exceeding anyone else that he had met in the Hang Yue sect. Even Master Sun Dazu and Brother Jiang couldn't compare to him. Wang Lin respectfully replied, "This liquid is something I found by accident. Besides these 100 drops, I have a few dozen left to use for myself. I don't have that much." The purple-clothed man pondered a little. He tossed out a piece of jade and said, "Fine. Give me the rest of the liquid and these chants are yours." Wang Lin took the piece of jade and scanned it to make sure it contained what he needed. He took out another bottle and placed the 2 bottles on the ground. He didn't get closer to the purple-clothed man. The purple-clothed man looked at Wang Lin, then waved his hand. The 2 bottles flew towards him. After scanning them with his divine sense, he said, "If you get more of this liquid, come look for me in the back mountains. It doesn't matter if it's foundation establishment pills, flying swords, skill jade, or even the chant for the 10th layer or later. I can get them all." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Wang Lin's eye became narrow and his gaze became cold. The last thing that purple-clothed man said was simply too vicious. If it was the people in the crowd, they might not have immediately realized, but Wang Lin had always been smart, so he could always see the deeper meaning in things. The words the guy said meant that anyone could take the mysterious liquid to him to trade. That placed Wang Lin in a very dangerous position. Although he couldn't see other people's eyes, he could feel that there were people secretly watching him. But after Wang Lin decided to bring out the spring water, he had already prepared for this possibility, so he didn't panic and calmly checked his surrounding. The crowd quickly continued the exchange until it was over. As people left, There were people who were filled with joy, as well as many filled with disappointment. Wang Lin did not leave with Wang Hao, but placed a dozen or so talismans on his legs and rushed out. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Wang Hao was a smart person and understood why Wang Lin did this. He quickly used a talisman and left the exchange ground. The disciples that revealed some good treasures all did the same and quickly left. The several disciples that had malicious thoughts toward Wang Lin after seeing the mysterious liquid were all taken by surprise. They wanted to chase, but only saw a shadow. They cursed a few times and left. Some of the higher cultivation level disciples didn't go and blatantly try steal things. This was, after all, an exchange between disciples of the same sect. If killing and stealing really occurred and was found out by the other's master, then there would be dire consequences. As Wang Lin was running, he kept placing more talismans on his legs. The speed the talismans gave stacked, so, with a few dozen talismans on his legs, he quickly returned to the sect courtyard. The person he was the most afraid of was the purple-clothed man. He didn't immediately return to the Chor house, but hid in an empty room. Only when daylight appeared and the disguise disappeared did Wang Lin carefully leave the room. Luckily, along the way back, there was nothing. Chapter 34, Training. With the chance all the way up to the 9th layer, Wang Lin could continue his cultivation. He returned to his reclusive lifestyle, while heavy tension loomed over the Heng Yue sect. All of the inner sect disciples were preparing for the competition. If they could reach the top, then magic treasures, pills, talismans, spirit stones, and more will be rewarded to them. What made their eyes green with envy was that this time, the sect took out one of its big treasures, the 2-moon ring, as the reward for first place. This 2-moon ring belonged to a senior of the sect from 300 years ago. It contained great defensive power. Therefore, all of the inner disciples were secretly preparing their strength. As for the newcomer competition, since there were only a handful of new inner disciples, everyone predicted that the winner of the newcomer competition will be Wang Qiawo. As for the honorary disciples, they became even more hostile toward each other. The competition to become an inner disciple was a chance to turn their lives around. Everyone was secretly preparing for it. This tense atmosphere had nothing to do with Wang Lin at all. In addition to cultivation, he also practiced the attraction technique. The day before the end of the month, he left the Chor house and headed straight for the main courtyard. The technique to hide his cultivation level was activated. The spiritual energy in his body quickly disguised itself to the level of the first layer of chi condensation. He found that the people at the Chor house were too annoying and kept him from cultivating properly, so he wanted an excuse to go to a quiet place to cultivate. After arriving at the main courtyard, he walked in. A while later, he stepped in front of Sun Dazu's herb garden and respectfully said, "Disciple Wang Lin requests to meet Master." "Why are you here?" The herb garden's gate didn't open. It seemed Sun Dazu really didn't like this disciple. Wang Lin's expression remained normal. He respectfully said, "Disciple's cultivation is too low, and I'm afraid I won't be able to win in the competition and lose Master face, so I would like to refrain from participating." Sun Dazu sneered. "It seems you are still a bit self-aware, you little brat. Look at Elder Su's disciple, Wang Qiawo. So young, yet already at the peak of the first layer, and could enter the second layer at any time. Even if you went, it would be useless. The others could kill you with their finger. I even heard you guys are relatives. How could there be such a big difference?" Wang Lin didn't care and said, "Wang Qiawo has been smart since he was young, and he's naturally talented. He's not someone this disciple could compete with." Sun Dazu pondered for a while and asked, "Did you find any more gods in the past half year?" Wang Lin shook his head, revealing a look of helplessness, and said, "This has really been strange. I have been to the mountain multiple times, but haven't seen any gods." Sun Dazu coldly said, "Do you have anything else to say? If not, then scram. Every time I see you, I get angry." Every time he laid eyes on Wang Lin, he couldn't contain his anger. He wished he could just kill Wang Lin with one hand so the others wouldn't laugh at him. Wang Lin bowed and respectfully said, "Master, disciple is really bored from staying up here in the mountains and would like to leave until after the new year. What do you think?" Sun Dazu refused and said, "Leave the mountain? You can't. I almost forgot until you mentioned it, but in 4 years is the competition between the other sects. This time, the head already ordered that after the new year, most of the inner disciples will go into intense closed-door training. You should go so you don't ruin my name in the intersect competition. Intense training? Wang Lin was stunned. Every 20 years, there must be a competition between the sects. That has been the rule for hundreds of years. Although Xuan Daozong is friendly with our Heng Yue sect on the surface, we secretly have a lot of disagreements. For the past 100 years, we have always lost to them, which is very disgraceful. That's why there will be this intense training. You listen to me well. If after 4 years you haven't made any advancement and make me lose face during the competition, I'll kick you out of the Heng Yue sect no matter what. After saying that, Sun Daizhu didn't explain anymore. Wang Lin secretly let out a sigh. It seemed that training outside the sect won't be possible. Seeing that Sun Daizhu's tone wasn't friendly, he nodded and took his leave. After returning to the Chor house, Wang Lin pondered a little. Since he couldn't train outside the sect, let's use this intense training to properly cultivate. The next day, the competition began. The scene was very lively. Wang Lin didn't go. He used this time to cultivate and solidify his foundation in the second layer. In the next few days, Wang Lin found out from the gossip of the honorary disciples that among the inner disciples, apprentice brother Zhang got first place, but only because no purple rank disciple participated. As for Wang Zhiwo, he unsurprisingly became the king of the new disciples. He became even more arrogant and no longer viewed disciples his age as people on his level. A week later, in the morning, a bell rang throughout the sect. It rang 5 times. That meant that all inner disciples must quickly gather outside the main hall. Wang Lin couldn't hear the bell from inside the dream space. It wasn't until the furious Sun Daizhu kicked open the Chor house's door and woke him. He quickly put away the bead and opened up the door to the secret training room, only to see Sun Daizhu's furious face, shouting, "Wang Lin, are you deaf? Did you not hear the bell? You bastard! All of the inner disciples participating in the intense training are there but you. You made me lose face before elder apprentice brother. You make me so mad." Wang Lin raised his brow and remained silent. Sun Daizhu gave Wang Lin a hard look. He knew that this was not the time to scold his disciple, because the head and apprentice brothers were all waiting. Without a word, he grabbed Wang Lin and stepped onto the 7-colored cloud and flew into the sky. At top speed, they arrived in front of the main hall. Sun Daizhu mercilessly threw Wang Lin to the ground. Sun Daizhu said, in a low whisper, "Wang Lin, follow me in. If you make me lose face again, I'll go against the sect rules and kill you." Those last words by Sun Daizhu were filled with killing intent. He was already at his wits' end with this disciple. He later decided that he must find a reason to kick his disciple out of the sect. Wang Lin rubbed his shoulder. If he hadn't already reached the second layer of qi condensation, then that fall would have broken his arm. He lowered his head and whispered, "Disciple obeys." Sun Daizhu snorted. He tidied his clothes and walked into the main hall. Wang Lin took a deep breath and suppressed his anger as he walked into the hall as well. The Heng Yue sect main hall was the most grand place within the sect. It was a wide hall with dozens of statues of sages of the sect. The entire hall was filled with a sense of awe. After Wang Lin followed Sun Daizhu into the hall, dozens of gazes suddenly gathered on him. He had difficulty breathing and quickly lowered his head. Chapter 35, Back Mountain. More than 40 inner disciples stood inside the hall. There were disciples of black, white, and red rank, but no purple. All of these disciples had serious expressions. Among them, Wang Lin could see many faces that he knew, like Wang Zhiwo, the girl named Su, the girl named Zhou, apprentice brother Zhang, and such. Right in front of them sat 2 rows of more than 10 elders, all with cold expressions. Right in the middle sat a person, about 40 years old, wearing a blue gown, with eyes like lightning. He said, "Junior brother Sun, this is your disciple?" Sun Daizhu quickly put up a smiling face and said, "Elder apprentice brother, this is my disciple, Wang Lin. He entered the sect late, so he doesn't know the meaning behind the bell ringing 5 times. A red-faced man sitting on the right sneered, "The disciple is really like his master. He's kinda dumb, just like you were back then. A man on his side laughed. Apprentice brother isn't correct. Junior brother's son at least had some talent, so he was much stronger than his disciple. Sun Dazu's face changed between red and white for a while. He gave Wang Lin a hard look. He snorted and ignored Wang Lin and went to sit down. The man in the blue gown frowned. He looked at Wang Lin one more time before forgetting about him and said, as said before, these 4 years of intense training must provide results. We must win in the competition against Xuandazong. Starting today, you will be entering the back mountain. Everyone will be provided with their own cultivation place. This time, the sect will provide 10,000 chi gathering pills for you all to use. None of you may leave the mountain during this time. All of the inner disciples replied in unison. The man in the blue gown nodded and continued to say, I hope that in 4 years, one of you will become a purple-clothed disciple. Purple-clothed disciple means a core disciple far more important than inner disciples. Forget it, experience it for yourself. Now, all of you, go to the back mountain and someone will lead to you the cultivation ground. After he finished speaking, he waved his sleeves and a white light shot out from them. After circling the hall once, he growled, open. The white light suddenly expanded and soon engulfed all of the inner disciples. Go. Following the growl from the man in the blue gown, the white light sparkled and disappeared from the main hall. Wang Lin felt a warm sensation in his body. After the blink of an eye, he found himself inside a valley. This place had much more spiritual energy than the other places. Sounds of water could be heard from all sides. He scanned the area and found the other inner disciples chatting with each other. This valley had no plants. It was a cliff with many holes carved into it, like a beehive. Some of the holes were sealed with giant rocks. Suddenly Wang Lin noticed that someone was watching him. He turned around and saw Wang Chiwo smiling at him coldly. At that moment, a youth came out from one of the holes in the cliff. He was wearing purple clothes and coldly looked at everyone. He said, fellow apprentice brothers and sisters, this is the back mountains of the Hengyue sect. As for back mountain, it's not really the back of the Hengyue sect, but a cultivation ground for inner disciples built by several soul transformation stage experts 500 years ago. This place has much thicker spiritual energy than normal. Since you are here, you must concentrate on cultivating, or else don't blame us seniors for kicking you out of the back mountain. Wang Lin recognized this purple-clothed youth. He was the person that bought Wang Lin's spiritual energy liquid. It was rumored that he was already at the 6th layer of chi condensation and that he was very unpredictable. Wang Lin lowered his head. This kind of scheming he understood well because he put him into a dangerous situation before. I have the chance for the 7th layer and below. If you reach that level, but don't have the chance, come to me. Once I check you, I'll give it to you. As for where you will be practicing, any one of these caves that isn't sealed can be chosen. Here are bottles of chi gathering pills. Each bottle contains 50 pills and will be refilled once a year. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and 50 white bottles appeared on the ground. Some of the inner disciples stepped forward and took a bottle, then started to look for the entrance to the cultivation area. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Because he took a disguise pill back then, that person didn't know his identity, so he went up and took a bottle. Jiang Quang stood at the side, looking at the inner disciples take the bottles one by one, when he suddenly saw Wang Lin. He had a strange look on his face and said, "What's your name? How come you haven't even reached the 1st layer of chi condensation? Who is your master?" E/N, apparently, his name changed from Kanjie to Jiang Quang. Whatever. Wang Lin stopped and turned around. He respectfully said, "Senior brother, my name is Wang Lin. My master is Sun Dazu. My talent is lacking, that's why I haven't reached the 1st layer yet." Jiang Quang was stunned. He smiled. "You are Wang Lin? I heard about you before. Although talent is important, perseverance is also key. Since your talent is lacking, you must work even harder." Wang Lin quickly promised. "This cliff is too high for you since you're not even at the 1st layer. I'll give you a lift." Jiang Quang waved his sleeves. An invisible force appeared under Wang Lin's feet and pushed him until he was in front of a cave. Wang Lin respectfully thanked Jiang Quang. After he turned around and entered the cave, his face quickly darkened. If he hadn't met this apprentice brother before, he would have been thankful, but after seeing his true nature, he would, of course, not take this small favor to heart. The cave wasn't large. There was only a stone bed and a lever on the wall. Wang Lin walked over and pulled the lever. Suddenly, a roaring sound could be heard as a giant rock fell down and completely sealed the cave. After carefully examining the cave again and finding nothing wrong, Wang Lin was very satisfied with the place. When he looked for Sun Dazu, he wanted to look for a place to cultivate outside of the sect. Although he was rejected, the current situation led him to a place that was pretty close to his original plans. The only downside was that there was no source of water inside the cave. Wang Lin's cultivation mainly relied on the spiritual energy liquid. But in his bag of holding, he had collected a lot of snow water, so it should be enough for him to use for a while. He also heard sounds of water inside the valley. As long as he was a bit cautious, water shouldn't be an issue.